Middle of Iggeres HaKodesh, Siman Yud, on page 230. So we spoke last week that the Nekuda of Torah mitzvahs, the purpose of Torah mitzvahs, is to draw down, is to draw down the light of Hashem into this world, into ourselves, into this world. Normally we draw down a limited light of Hashem, which is enough, it's sufficient. That's actually the way the Eibishter established and set it up. And that's why the mitzvahs that we do, also the mitzvahs are limited. Most of the mitzvahs in the Torah have a limit, have a shear. That all works for someone who followed the Torah mitzvahs their entire lives and never strayed, never veered off the path, kimeloi nima, by a hair's breadth. So for that person, it's enough to do mitzvahs with all the hagbalas, the limitations in the Torah, including the limitation of tzedakah, which is 10% or 20%. And that's enough to be mamshech the oir all the way down here to the oir into this world. But someone who was poigim, someone who was over on a mitzvah, someone who did not do a mitzvah, which is Chazal say, this is a mu'uvis, lo yuchal liskain, this is someone who has messed up and it can't be fixed. Why? Because there was an oir that you're supposed to bring down that you didn't bring down. So what's the eitzah for that? For that you have to reach much higher. For that you have to reach much deeper. For that you need to reach the chesed Hashem, as we mentioned, the Rav chesed. There are two types of chesed. There's the Rav chesed, and there's the Chesed Olam. Chesed Olam is the limited Chesed. For that we need to reach the Rav Chesed. Very high up. And through that, because the light, the energy that comes from there is an infinite, unlimited one, it automatically fills up all the missing, all the voids, everything that you missed out, all the absences, and everything that a person has done is rectified. This is a very, very deep level of tshuva. To the point, interestingly, that even in Iggeres HaTshuva, the Alter Rebbe doesn't talk about this. In Iggeres HaTshuva, the Alter Rebbe talks about the normal tshuva and tells you how to do tshuva and what to do. But a regular tshuva that a person does is not going to get you the Rav Chesed. This is a very, very deep level, because remember in Iggeres HaTshuva, the Alter Rebbe says, you're mavatla mitzvahs hasei, so the light is missing, and he doesn't give any eitzah for that. And here the Alter Rebbe is taking it a step further. And the Alter Rebbe is saying that even when you missed out on a mitzvah aseh, you can still compensate. Yeah, but it's not in the normal. It's not the normal part of tshuva. It's a very deep level of tshuva. We may have mentioned this once in the past, that if you look in the Rambam, in Hilchos Tshuva, Reb Nosson, can I be material here to bring me a Rambam? Sure. Mada. Sure. Yeah.
I sure went downstairs.
Yeah. So it's interesting, if you look at the wording of the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva, the wording seems to apply that there is no obligation to do tshuva. We have spoken about this in the past. I'd have gotten it if not for this thing that's attached to me. Thank you. In the first Perek, the Rambam says, Kol mitzvah shebet bein aseh bin leisasa, any mitzvah in the Torah, whether it's mitzvah aseh, whether it's a mitzvah leisasa, im avar adam al achas mehen, if a person transgressed one of them, bein bezodin, bein bishkaga, whether it's intentional or whether it's by mistake, kisheyasa tshuva v'yashuv mechetei, when such a person does tshuva and he repents from his sin, chayiv l'isvades lifnei hakel baruch hu, he is obligated to confess, to orally say vidui. Now, if you look at those words closely, it's very fascinating. The Rambam doesn't say that every time a person does an Avera, he has to do tshuva. He doesn't say that. Again, he says, any mitzvah the Torah that a person transgressed, kishayatsa tshuva, when the person does tshuva, chayiv lisvadis, the chiyuv is vidui. Why doesn't he say that kishayechta, when a person does an Avera, chayiv lashuv, there's a mitzvah to do tshuva? And this is something which is different Mefarshim and the Rambam talk about, and they give different explanations. And what's interesting is that the Minchas Chinuch argues that according to the Rambam Taka, there is no chiyuv to do tshuva. The chiyuv is, if and when you do tshuva, the Torah tells you, here's the process, and that includes vidui. But there is no, so if you go to a Rav and say, my dear Rav, I did an Aveda yesterday, what should I do? He'll say, what do you mean, what should you do? Don't do that Aveda again. And that's obvious, the Torah says, right? You can't do it again. And what else? Again, according to Minchas Chinuch's understanding of the Rambam, which not everyone agrees with. And what else? The Rambam will say, nothing else, there's no other obligation. How about tshuva? Oh, tshuva. If you decide to do tshuva, let me tell you how to do it. You have to say vidui. But tshuva itself is not a chiyuv.
How is that possible? Don't we learn that a person is chayiv for every minute that he doesn't do tshuva? Isn't that the...
So again, I'm not telling you that that's la halacha. That's probably not the halacha. But this is the Minchas Chinuch's understanding of the Rambam. The Rambam definitely, his approach is a very valid approach. The Minchas Chinuch definitely is universally accepted. That's how he understands the Rambam.
Because the Rambam doesn't say you use the word chayiv.
He doesn't say you're obligated to do tshuva.
He doesn't use the word chayiv.
He doesn't say that word. He says that the chiyuv was regarding vidui.
And he doesn't list the meaning of the mitzvahs. Tshuva.
I don't remember. It's a tshuva and vidui used to, okay.
I remember.
In the minyan mitzvahs in the beginning, okay, to go find it will be difficult, but I'll trust you on that. There are, however, other explanations for this Rambam, which say that no, that it is really a chiyuv. And they explain the Rambam in a different way. The Rebbe talks about this in a sikha, and the Rebbe says, we know that elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. Regardless of what the halacha is, every single valid Torah opinion is emes. So there's a emes to the fact that tshuva is a mitzvah, and there's a emes to the fact that tshuva is not a mitzvah. And they both represent different truths about tshuva. And they're talking about different levels of tshuva. So practically speaking, is tshuva a mitzvah? Yeah, that's the halacha. So if you go to a Rav, the Rav will tell you, you have to go do tshuva. That is correct. However, any tshuva which you're doing it because you are mandated to do, because you were told to do it,
It's not a good tshuva.
is not the deepest level of tshuva.
Not the deepest level, but it is part of tshuva.
And you might argue it's not the essence of tshuva.
Even charata itself, isn't that part of tshuva? I mean, that's a level of tshuva itself.
And a chanami, but there's different types of charata. Let me explain what I'm saying. Whenever you are doing something that you are told to do, in essence, you're responding to another. It's not the truest expression of yourself. It says that when Mashiach comes, it says, mitzvahs b'teilos l'asur laveh. So steht, Chazal tell us. The mitzvahs will be batal when Mashiach comes. Now what does that mean? You know, one of the Yud Gimel Ikri Emunah is that this Zeis HaTorah is la'ad l'olmi elamim, and the Zeis HaTorah leitehim uchlefes. So what does it mean when Chazal say the mitzvahs will be batal? So the Rebbe addresses this, and the Rebbe says, what does mitzvah mean? Mitzvah means a commandment. A commandment implies there's the mitzvah, there's the commander, the one giving the command, the one giving the instruction, and then there's the one who's the mitzvah, the one who is
Doing.
and I am doing it because you told me to do it. That's the geder, the definition of a mitzvah. The idea of a mitzvah won't be when Mashiach comes. Of course we'll put on tefillin. Of course we'll put up a mezuzah. Of course we'll eat matzah and Pesach. And of course, chas v'shalom, we won't do any averis. But not because we're commanded to, but because we are completely in sync with Hashem to the point that you can't say there's a mitzvah and there's a mitzvah. The word commandment won't apply. We'll be totally in sync with the Ratzon Hashem And it'll be automatic that we will do what's supposed to be what the Ratzon of Hashem is, because it is our Ratzon. The moment that I'm doing tshuva because you're telling me to, it's not the deepest part of who I am. I might have told you this little anecdote which happened many years ago with me. I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, just stuck in my mind because it was so, maybe I mentioned it in the past. I was once sitting with my wife. There was one evening we were sitting in the living room, kids are asleep, both sitting on couches, and it was in the middle of the winter, and I thought to myself suddenly, whatever I was doing, learning, reading, I thought my wife, she probably would like a cup of tea. So I get up from the couch, I walk towards the kitchen to get her a cup of tea. She sees me going to the kitchen. She looks and says, "Oh, Naftali, you're going to the kitchen, do me a favor. Get me a cup of tea, please." So I got her the cup of tea. But the whole, my whole geschmack, my whole enthusiasm, like it was like you put a pin in a balloon. But what happened? After all, she wanted tea. And I'm bringing it to her. In fact, if anything, her asking me to do it, if anything, is a confirmation that I was correct in my assumption. I should have been very happy.
She read your mind that you're going to make a cup of tea.
So why wasn't I happy? Because when you're told to do something,
It's not the same.
it's not the same. Why? Because it's not me. When I bring it to her, it's me just doing what you want. I wanted to bring it because I want to bring it, because this is me.
It's nice.
The ultimate idea of tshuva is that I am in such a place of choshech, I'm in a place of darkness. I look back at the Iggeres I've done and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? This is not what I want. I want to be connected to Hashem. It's an essential feeling. And that can't be commanded. I can't tell you, feel horrible. And if I tell you to feel horrible and you're feeling horrible because I told you to, it's not really
horrible.
It's not at the core. It's not at the core. It's not at your core.
Yeah.
Something which is an essential thing can't be commanded. I'm doing it because I want to, not because I'm told to.
Did you tell her that?
Of course not.
You didn't?
I don't remember. But she's heard the story from me before.
Oh.
But the bottom line is, when it comes to tshuva, on a very simple level, you go, do tshuva. What is do tshuva? Think about what you did bad. Why? Because the Torah told me after the tshuva, so I'll think about what I did bad, and I will do whatever it takes. I'll say if you do. Okay, so you did the mitzvah of tshuva. That is the mitzvah of tshuva. The essence of tshuva is the mu'umka deliba, the memamakim kerasicha Hashem. When a yid is tzutreiselt, shook to the core at where he is. Here I am. I'm a ben Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. More than that, I'm the ben Yochid of Melech, Malchi Amlachim, HaKodesh Baruch Hu. And look at the schmutz, look at the dirt, look at the filth, look at where I am right now. And that brings a person to such a place, and the tshuva that comes from that place is a limitless feeling. It's an infinite, it comes from the very essence, and it changes the whole core. The Zohar says that imagine if you got a chicken and the chicken is filled with earth, it got dirty, filled with mud. You want to go clean it. Try cleaning a chicken. Every feather you have to take, and you have to clean every feather. But then, this is the pasuk. Hisnari me'afar kumi. What does the pasuk say? Hisnari, shake yourself off. Me'afar, from the dirt, kumi, and stand up. The chicken, all it has to do is stand up and give one shake. You ever saw a chicken do that? Give one shake, and all the dirt goes flying. Hisnari, shake it. Sometimes you have to go, okay, I have to have dirt over here and I have dirt over here. Let me take out some dirt from over here I have. I'm talking spiritually, obviously. And sometimes you have a hisnari. You give yourself a shakel, a shake, and all the dirt goes flying. And that is the essence of tshuva. And that can't be commanded. I can't command you to shakel yourself. That has to come from within. And that's how the Rebbe explains how both opinions about tshuva are really correct. It is a mitzvah, but at its deepest point, it can't be a mitzvah. It's beyond a mitzvah. This that the Alter Rebbe is talking about over here, when the Alter Rebbe is saying that this tshuva, it reaches the very essence of Hashem. Why does it reach the infinite essence of Hashem? Because this is a tshuva that is sourced in the infinite essence of ourselves. That is the essence of tshuva. A normal tshuva, the tshuva that the Rebbe talks about in Iggeres tshuva, you did tshuva, the Eibishter will forgive you. Maybe if you did an avera, the damage will be rectified, but it doesn't bring down that infinite light to fill up all the voids and all the absences from beforehand. But the level of tshuva, which is from touches at the etzem hanefesh, what we call it, the essence of the neshama, which is what we're talking about over here, that when you touch that, so we know midah keneged midah, as we've discussed many times, that our actions below cause a corresponding impact and effect above, that causes an unleashing of the essence of Hashem, and that fills up automatically all of, and that it evokes and that infinite energy, the Rav Chesed, which can fill up all the voids from all the mitzvahs that were missed in the previous times. Yeah.
Right.
It's the opposite of what we learn regularly from mitzvot. We learn that it's greater. The mitzvah is greater than somebody who does it just because they feel it's the right thing to do.
Right.
So this is contrary to that.
It's also true. Mitzvah v'isa means you get more. There are a lot of explanations for mitzvah v'isa, and it's a separate conversation. But on a very simple level, mitzvah v'isa means you get more schar.
Right.
For the simple reason that when you're commanded to do something, to a certain extent, it's harder to do
There's a
it.
Yetzer Hara that stops you.
It's harder. Like, see me, my wife tells me sometimes, it's hard for me to make supper every night. I'm like, what are you talking about? I love making supper. It's so much fun making supper. Why do I say that? Because once in a while, at least once a month or twice a year, I come home from work and I'm like, I'm in the mood of making supper. And I go and I, buy some this and do this and put together, and it's all exciting. I don't have to make the supper when I have a headache and when I'm tired. It's when I'm not, that when you're not in mitzvah v'isa, when you can do it when you want, it's much easier. When you have to do it,
Different ballgame.
it's a different ballgame. When you have to do it, you don't want to do it. So therefore the schar is a greater schar, but that doesn't impact, and they're both truths. The idea that something which you do expresses yourself more, any mitzvah v'isa is one truth, and the other side is also a truth. There's a joke about, there's a guy living in Manhattan, based on the second floor, the third floor of a building, and one day, 8 o'clock at night, a bunch of teenagers, a bunch of punks, they set up a shop right outside, on the sidewalk outside, and they start banging and playing music. He's like, what am I going to do? These are the kind of people you go tell them not to. It's not going to help you anything. Okay.
Come on.
Yeah. Okay. He tries to sleep through it. The next day, Nachmal, he realized, Pasha, they set up shop over here. He had to, what's our tongue? What is he going to do? Calling the police here in New York? We know that's what that's going to do for you. So he came up with a plan. Goes on that night, and he has a $20 bill with him and says, guys, I want you to know, you've been here the last few nights. You have no idea how much I love the music. I'm a little worried that you're going to move to another block. Please stay here. I'm going to pay you $20 a night. I want you to play the music here because I fall asleep to it. It's amazing. They're like, sure, that's a great idea. And they were doing it for free. Now they're getting $20, right? That next night he comes again and gives him $20. And for the next 3 to 4 days, he gives him $20 every night. The night afterwards, he comes down to them and says, guys, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I'm having a little difficult, rough time in my business. I can't really afford $20. $10, is that going to be enough? And they say, hold on 1 second. They go, they whisper amongst each other, and they're like, okay, we'll do it for $10. 3 nights later, he comes down to them and says, guys, I can't afford it. I would love for you to stay over here, but I just can't afford it anymore. They're like, you crazy? For free? No way. We're moving to the next corner. This is the idea of, as long as you're enjoying yourself on the block, but the moment you feel, I have to be here on this corner every single night, and I'm not getting paid for it, no way in the world. I'm going to the next corner, right? Because I don't want to be mitzvah v'isa. I don't want to have to do that. But they're both truths. They're both truths. But the bottom line is that through tshuva, because tshuva is sourced in the mamamakim, in the most deepest part of who we are, we draw down the deepest part of Hashem, and that automatically has the ability to fill up all of the absences, the voids, the oil which we neglected to bring down because of the mitzvahs that we did not do in the past. Yes?
What it said, במקום שבעלי תשובה עומדים, What's the Hemshech?
Ein tzadikim gemurim yichelim lamed sham.
This tshuva is Rav Chesed? If tzaddik
This is what we're talking about.
it's a dafka Rav Chesed.
Yeah, that's the advantage of tzaddikim of Baal Tshuva, which is that dafka the Baal Tshuva reaches this level of Rav Chesed. The tzaddik, for him, he's mamshech chesed olam, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But the Baal Tshuva reaches the deeper place. Yes. Okay. We're going to continue now inside, page 230.
230.
Yes. By the words, ach kidei laham sheichai, which is 10 lines from the top. The first word in the line is mo'eder. However, kidei laham sheichai l'hor be'elam eshal yedim v'tachtoinim, in order to be mamshich, this oir of Rav Chesed, this infinite oir and soft, the infinite light of Hashem, to bring it down into the worlds, not only the higher worlds, but also the lower worlds. Sarich isarusa de latata mames. For that we need literally a practical isarusa de latata, awakening from a below, bibichines maisa, an action, the hainu maisa hatzdaka, which is tzedakah. What the Rebbe is saying is, when you do tshuva, even the highest level of tshuva, and you reach in your heart and your neshama to the deepest part of who you are, so you've touched the Eir and Saf. You've evoked the Eir and Saf. You've triggered the Eir and Saf. But you want to bring that Eir and Saf down here into this world because that is the purpose. Just like the mitzvahs, the purpose of mitzvahs is to bring Eir into this world, and that Eir is missing because of the mitzvahs that you did not do. You need to bring the Eir all the way down into this world. How do you get the Eir all the way down into this world, in the lowest world in Elam Asiyah? For that you need a Maisa. Tshuva dislodges the oil from its place. It awakens it. But to get that oil which you awakened through your tshuva, and to bring it all the way down here into this world, for that you need Maisa Tzedakah. And not Stam Maisa Tzedakah, but Maisa Tzedakah v'chesed b'li gvul u'midah. That's giving tzedakah without a limit and without a measure.
What does that mean?
That means forgetting about Meiser and forgetting about Chomish and giving tzedakah without a measure.
All you have.
I didn't say to give all you have.
Well, out of measures that could
Without the limitations, again, the mitzvah of tzedakah, Meiser, Chomish is for a tzaddik. So someone who's a tzaddik, because the tzaddik always followed the path and never veered off the path, so he's on that limited path, right?
Yeah.
You went off the path? Okay, you want to fix it? You're going to have to go off the path, but in the other way. So if you forget about your Meiser, forget about your Chomish, you have to give it tzedakah, b'li gvul. Now obviously when we say b'li gvul,
how much?
that's the wrong, if you're asking that question, you don't get what the Rebbe is saying.
I don't know what b'li gvul means.
B'li gvul means without a limit. Whatever your limit is, it has to be more than that.
If you're multi-millionaire,
If I'm a million, I'm worth a million. I have to give more than a million.
I'm having a tough time with this question.
He said b'li gvul.
Yeah.
That's an abstract concept by me.
B'li gvul, I get it. You're so gvul that you are so gvul that b'li gvul is an abstract concept for you.
That's right. I don't understand that.
There's one way of giving tzedakah, which is that I'm square. So therefore I look in Shulchan Aruch, I have to give 10%, I have to give 20%. There's also something else. How much can I afford to give, and what's logical and what's rational? And here I have my retirement fund, and it's all within your limitations. And then there's tzedakah, which is without limitation. Doesn't mean giving 100%, 90%, 80%, 70%. I'm not going to answer that question. And by the way, for some people it's 5%, depending on. It's more than Torah mandates you to give, and more than you could give. More than your limitations allow for you to give. It is pushing the limits and going beyond the limits. You understand?
Beyond your spendable income, you say. You need X amount for your budget to live on. So you're going beyond, a little bit beyond your spendable income. And that's b'li gvul. That's your definition of b'li gvul. Let's say I need to live on, I need $50,000 a year to live on, to pay all my bills. So it means I have to give, how much money should I give? That would be considered b'li gvul.
I can't answer your question. I can't. It's a mindset. It's not about a number. It's about a mindset.
About what you meant to.
It's about a mindset towards tzedakah. Most people look at tzedakah and say, again, either they have the Torah's gvul, and which is 10%, 20%, and or they have the gvul of what I can afford, and I need to have $50,000 a year exactly. And some people don't have that gvul. By way of example, an example Alter Rebbe is going to give later. Okay, imagine if a person is ill, seriously ill, and needs money for their medication. Is the person going to say, okay, how much can I afford to spend on this? So I need $50,000 for my spending for this year. So that leaves me around $5,000 for my medicine. And if that covers it, good. But if not, I need my I need $50,000 to spend on. Is that person's mindset?
No.
So the person spends on it bleigvul. What does bleigvul mean? You go beyond the limitations.
I mean, he'll spend less what he needs to live on, and it says,
You're adding it up. So you're already figuring it out, how it's going to work. He'll spend less on what he needs on. It's not about, there's certain things that you just give. If you have a tzedakah mindset, as the Alter Rebbe once said, you give as much as you can. Beyond, and you push the limits, and you give more, and you give more, and you give more. And if you have a little less, and if you have to go into debt, it's a mindset, and I'm not telling you to go into debt. It's a certain mindset of that when it comes to tzedakah, we usually look at tzedakah in a very limited way, and we treat our tzedakah in a very limited way. Let's talk very practically. How much to give to tzedakah? I have a budget, and the Alter Rebbe is saying, forget your budget, and don't say I'm adding 5% to my budget, because that's just you're putting another limit on it. We have to look at tzedakah in a way of bleigvul. I'm always giving, and it's giving as much as I can, and when I can, and when someone asks, literally just today, as I'm preparing this year, I get a text from someone like, can you, I need help, whatever. Chabad house somewhere. Maybe he's listening. I don't know. Online. I know he actually listens sometimes online. And I was thinking to myself, I just gave that, I give there. To me, Meiser Chomish doesn't mean anything because I have, with my kids, my chinuch, that wipes out Meiser and Chomish. It doesn't begin. If I didn't give a cent of tzedakah other than my chinuch, I'm already over Chomish. So I have no chiyuv in tzedakah. And nevertheless, I'm still, you give here, you give there, and another expense. And I'm like, I'm busy learning this. I'm busy preparing this to teach about tzedakah bleigvul. I'm thinking about that. I answered, of course. And I went and I gave. But it's a mindset. It's a mindset. When you ask, you give. And moving out of the limitations we usually have. I already gave. Can I afford? Can I not afford? No, I'm not talking about selling your house and starving. That's not what I mean. It's about a certain moving beyond that limited mindset which most of us have regarding tzedakah.
How about Aniyeh Betcha Kodmin La'aniyeh Erecha? First you have to take care of the house.
So that's also tzedakah. If you have aniyim in your house, then you have to give them tzedakah. We learned about that in last siman. What is the way to bring Hashem's, the Ir and Sof, the Rav Chesed, all the way down here into this world? Is Tzedakah v'Chesed b'li gvul u'mida, without any limitation. The K'moi sha'adam mashpia Rav Chesed, just like a person is giving a tremendous amount of Chesed, and when the Alter Rebbe says, what is Chesed? Pirush. The word Chesed is made up of the words Chas Dalis, Ches Samach and Dalit, right? Chas means to have Rachmanis, like Chas v'Shalom. Dalis is Melashon Dal, someone who's poor, having Rachmanis, and the one who's poor, the Hainu L'Dal ve'Evyin. We're giving to the poor person, Diles, by the way, Diles is the same words as Dalis, as the Dalit. Diles Le Megarmei Klum, but when you give to the person who has nothing, when a person does not put a limit or measurement to that which he gives and that which he's mashpia, then we cause HaKodesh Baruch Hu mashpia, the Eibishter is mashpia, his light and his goodness, the higher level of chesed, hanikra Rav Chesed, which is called Rav Chesed, Hameir bebechinis ein soif, which illuminates in an infinite way, b'li gvul amida, without any measurement, without any limit, Toicha Elamis in the worlds, El Yoinim v'Tachtoinim, the higher worlds, the lower worlds, Shekulam Hein Bebechinis Dalis Etzle Yizbarach. They're all, relative to Hashem, they're all poor. Because all the worlds are all poor and have nothing. The less Lohin, Megar Mehin Klum, all the worlds, from Hashem's perspective, they have absolutely nothing. The Kula Kamei Kloch Shivi, and after all, relative to Hashem, everything is nothing. And through drawing down this light, the person is able to fix all of the blemishes, the person blemished through his Iggeres, the blemishes he made in the higher worlds. This has been discussed, that when you do Iggeres, you cause blemishes, and you cause Pegamim in the higher worlds, and also V'tachtoinim. And this is what the Pasuk says in Mishli, Nivchar la Hashem mizevach. That doing tzedakah u'mishpat to Hashem, that's preferable over karbanos.
Where does it say that?
Mishlei.
Oh, Mishlei. Oh.
Even on a practically, so what is the common denominator between tzedakah and karbanos? That both of them bring about a kapara. But we have over here that tzedakah, the pasuk says that Hashem prefers tzedakah over karbanos. In a very practical sense, we know that karbanos are limited. They're limited in what they can accomplish. You bring a carbon chatas for Aveda, which he did b'shogeg. If you did an Aveda b'mezid, a carbon's not mechaper on that. Aside from a few select Avedas for which there's a carbon asham or a carbon elav, but the standard carbon chatas does not help for an Aveda that was done b'mezid. Tzedakah has no limits. Tzedakah is mechaper everything. And why is that? Karbanos are limited, as we mentioned. Let's say you did an Avera and you want to bring 2 chatases. I feel so bad about the Avera I've done, I want to bring 2 chatases. Can you do that? No. And let's say you say, I did an Avera, and instead of bringing a chatas, instead of bringing a sheep, how much does a sheep cost already? I'd rather bring
A beard.
a beer.
Beard, Yona.
A bird? No, that's the other way around. I don't know. I want to bring $100,000, right? Or I want to bring a chayes. What's a big kosher animal? Which I want to bring a buffalo. How much does a buffalo cost? Mechanisch. What?
Giraffe.
A giraffe, right? No, karbanos are mugbal. There's a limit. They're limited. Sorry.
If Averos are done only when a Ruach Shtus enters the person, so all Averos are shogeg, no?
He's saying
Not halachically. Not halachically.
No. They don't believe in temporary insanity.
Not halachically.
That's not a defense.
So Ruach Shtus.
That's temporary.
Ruach Shtus doesn't mean b'shegig. B'shegig means that you did not know that it was aser, or you did not know you're doing the Avera. Every Avera, yes, takes into account the Ruach Shtus, and nevertheless, you still have to do tshuva. Chatas is something else. Shegig means something else.
It said, "Lo tosifun v'lo tigraun."
Right. So mitzvahs are with a limit. Mashenk in b'tzedakah. On the other hand, tzedakah sheyuchal lefazer b'ligvul. You can give as much as you want. You can spread around tzedakah without a limit, l'sakin aveinaisav, to fix up your avenis. So this is the advantage of tzedakah over karbanos. That karbanos are limited and tzedakah is unlimited. Umashe kasuv. Suddenly we're going to bump into a halachic obstacle over here. Halachic wall. What do you tell me? You tell me to give tzedakah without limits. But the halacha is the Gemara says in Ksubis, right, that if you're giving money, giving tzedakah, you're not allowed to give more than 20%. The Alter Rebbe is going to say you're Ameir in the Kechiddush. And if this came stam from someone, not the Alter Rebbe, not the Mechaber of Shulchan Aruch Harav, you'd throw a little salt in it. You'd say, okay, it's Chassidische Vertel, but the Alter Rebbe is a poisek. The Alter Rebbe wasn't just saying Vertlach. Alter Rebbe says that when the Gemara says, that's someone who never did any Averis. Or someone who's already misakin his Averis, already you already you fasted already, and you already rolled around in the snow, and you slept a few years with a rock for a pillow. You know, all the different sorts of forms of sigufim, self-abnegation. You did that. You got rid of all your vedas. Say nachanami. For you, the halacha is you're not allowed to give more than 20%. Aval, however, Misha Sarach Lasakin, Nafshe Yadayin, someone who's the last to be Masakin is Nefesh. And I'll take a big leap, and I'll make an assumption, and I'll say that covers everyone here in this room, and probably everyone who's going to be watching this online also. Pshita. Alter Rebbe says, Pshita, it's certain. Delegara refuas hanefesh merguas fuas aguf. That healing your soul is not any less important than healing your body. She'ein kesef nechshav, and just like when it comes to healing your body, money is of no object. V'chol asher leish yitin ba'ad nafshei ksiv. The pasuk says, whatever you have, you'll give to save yourself. If that is true physically, it's also true spiritually. So the limitation of Meiser and Chomish do not apply to someone who wants to do tshuva. Dr. Rebbe says the same thing in Iggeres HaTshuva. We learned this a little while back. And if you turn to page Sada Gimel, which is opposite of page 184, the last two words on the line. Reuven, I'm sure you remember this. Alter Rebbe says, because the amount of fasts required, brought down in the Sfarim, in order to fix up our Vedas are very much. Therefore, therefore, all those today who are charid l'dvar Hashem, who tremble at the word of Hashem, laharbois mi'oid me'oid b'tzedakah.
Instead of Tanya.
Sorry?
Instead of
Tainus, the custom today is to give very, very much, a lot of tzedakah. Machmas chalishus hader, because of the weakness of the generation. Today we can't fast that much. So the meaning today is that we give a lot of tzedakah. We don't limit ourselves to Ma'aser and Chomish. And then Reuven, what does the Alter Rebbe say? What are the next words?
Ziklokla.
The next words, page 186.
Oh, 186. I'll put them on.
What's the next words in the parentheses? As I explained elsewhere, al pasuk chaste Hashem kilei samnu, and the pasuk chaste Hashem kilei samnu, which is the simon that we're learning. The simon we're learning.
We're learning that.
Right. So Alter Rebbe says in short of air and says, I explained elsewhere the logic behind giving a lot of tzedakah and chaste Hashem kilei samnu, which is the letter that we are learning right now. This ability to give chesed without limitation, nikras al shmoi shel HaKodesh Baruch Hu. This is called, we call this by Hashem's name, chaste Hashem. The chesed without a limit is the chesed of Hashem. Because Hashem is unlimited, Hashem is bligvul. So when we are giving tzedakah bligvul, that is also chaste Hashem. Kideksiv, as the pasuk says in Tehillim, v'chesed Hashem mi'olam v'yolam v'yad olam chulu. And what is the end of the pasuk? No, you're our Tanakh person. What's the end of that pasuk? V'chesed Hashem mi'olam v'yad olam Tehillim al yireyav. So what is the simple meaning of that pasuk? That the kindness of Hashem always is extended towards those who fear Him. Alter Rebbe has a different or a deeper pshat. No. The chesed of Hashem is within those who fear Hashem. Chesed Hashem me'elam ve'elam v'adelam al yireyav. Those who fear Hashem, they themselves also channel the chesed of Hashem. Ki agam shekol Yisrael him rachman megim lichasadim. Why do we need chaste Hashem? We know that Yidden, all Yidden are rachmanim. We have rachmanis. That's it's a signature trait of Kol Yisrael. So why do we need chaste Hashem? Beram, however, yesh gvul umida l'rachmi adam. Our rachmim is limited. Yes, Yidden are by nature more compassionate than Goyim. But even the natural compassion of Yidden is also limited. Aval HaKodesh Baruch Hu Nikra Ein Sof Baruch Hu. The Eibishter is unlimited. Ulamidais of Ein Sof. And therefore, just like Hashem is Ein Sof, His midas are Ein Sof. So therefore, Hashem's Chesed and Rachmim are also Ein Sof. Kidiksiv, as the pasuk says, Ki Dechalu Rachma V'chulu. That is, Rachmim never ends. Literally, Hashem's Rachmim is infinite. So this Chesed of Hashem is called Chastei Hashem. And now we were going to answer the question that we started this siman with. Remember, we said we brought on the pasuk in Eicha. Talk about timely, 11 mit the Zeit. We're about to enter the month of Av. So we say in Eicha, Chastei Hashem Kilei Samnu. Kilei Chalu Rachamav. And what did we ask? Why did we say Chastei Hashem Kilei Samnu? It should say Chastei Hashem Kilei Samu. Like Hatoiv Kilei Chalu Rachamecha, Hamerachim Kilei Samu Chasadecha. We don't say Kilei Samnu Chasadecha. So why do we say Chastei Hashem Kilei Samnu? It's a shayla on all the singers. But Be'etzam a shayla on Yirmiyahu and Avi, right? What's Chaz? Now the Rebbe will explain. And this is what the Navi writes after the Churban and the Galus. The truth is that Eicha was written before the Churban. But when Eicha was written about the Churban. So therefore it's a pasuk which is connected to the Churban and Galus. And what does he say? Chastei Hashem Kilei Samnu V'Gomer, which means what? Pirush Lefi Shelei Samnu, because we are not complete. Tam is complete. Chastei Hashem, why do we need to have Chastei Hashem Kilei Samnu? Because we're not complete. Because we've done Averis. Because there are mitzvahs that we've skipped out on. Because we need to do tshuva. And therefore, we need Chastei Hashem. If we were Tamnu, if we still were like in times of the Beis HaMikdash, and if we were complete and holy, then we wouldn't need Chastei Hashem. Then our natural chesed and rachmim that we have, as Yidden, that we're Rachmanim, Agim Chasadim is enough. But because Kilei Samnu, because we're not complete, therefore we need Chastei Hashem. Pirush lefi shalei tamnu, because we are not complete. She'einanu tmimim u'shleimim. We are not complete. Beli shomchet u'pagam benefesh u'beil mishal yenim. No, we're not. We have blemishes and our own nefesh, and the blemishes that we created also in the higher worlds through our Averis. Al kain, therefore, tzrichimanu lisnaig b'chastei Hashem. Therefore, it's not enough for us to do the normal chesed. We need to do tzedakah in a way of Chastei Hashem. Shem b'li gvul v'tachlis. We need to do tzedakah without a limit. K'dei la'eder aleinu rachmim v'chesed ilah, to awaken upon ourselves the rachmim and the supernal chesed, the rav chesed. Shehu rav chesed v'rachmim b'li gvul v'tachlis. A chesed which is without any limitation, Kamei Shekasuv, as the pasuk says, Ki le'chalu rachma v'goymer. We're trying to bring down Chastei Hashem Kilei Samnu. Why? Because what are we trying to bring down in the world? Kilei Chalu Rachma. We're trying to bring down into this world the Rachma of Hashem which are b'ligvul. This is why Chazal tell us Ein Yisrael Nigal and Ela B'Tzedakah. Chazal tell us that the Geula will come only through tzedakah. But what kind of tzedakah? Maybe does it mean tzedakah of Meiser, of Chumash? Alter Rebbe says no. Sheyasu Gamim Yiptur Medina. We're talking about tzedakah without limitation. Because be'etzem, before Mashiach comes, we're going to be potter from giving tzedakah. Why? Not because we have such high tuition bills, but because the Gemara says, Ki ein ben David ba'chulu. Alter Rebbe doesn't bring the ending words, but the Gemara tells us that ein ben David ba'acha tichla pruta min hakis. The Mashiach is not going to come before the money runs out of the wallet.
You give so much tzedakah. So
that means that before Mashiach comes, we're not going to have any money. And nevertheless, Mashiach is coming only through tzedakah. But if we don't have money, how are we giving tzedakah? Think about that. On one hand, we say, Ein Yisrael Nagan Ala B'Tzedakah. On the other hand, we say, Ein Yisrael, Ein Ben David Ba, Achatichla, Pruta Merakis. And what's the answer? The answer is that we won't have money and we'll still give tzedakah.
How do you give tzedakah without money?
There you go again.
You're repeating yourself.
What does it mean you don't have money? Who doesn't have money? When it says there is no money, what does that mean? So everyone's going to starve from hunger? It means it'll be a time of economic hardship, and there'll be very limited amount of money. Don't take it literally, and therefore people are potter. What potter means tzedakah?
Yeah.
And they're still giving tzedakah. And why are they giving tzedakah? Because Chastei Hashem. Because they're channeling the chesed of Hashem, which is believable. If the tzedakah you're giving is within the limitations of halacha taka. It's in the limitations of halacha. Meiser Chumash, and sometimes you have no money. You go to Rav, the Rav will say you can't give Meiser.
Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe there's people will be so wealthy, they're giving so much stuff that people still poor.
The people, sorry?
People are so wealthy, but they're giving so much stuff and there's still there's no money.
Why is there no money?
Because people are giving it all to
Because they're giving it all the way to tzedakah. It's interesting though. But here, so what's bringing Mashiach is the tzedakah. What's bringing Mashiach is the tshuva, as we discussed. We have these two very timely. We're talking about this now as we enter the 9 days, and looking forward to the Menachem of. We're looking forward that the Eibusher should be Menachem us. But also, as mentioned in previous years, Menachem of is also really, if we're looking that the Eibusher should be Menachem us, it should be the name of the month should be you're the of Menachem. Menachem of literally means the word Menachem the Eibusher, right? We have to be Menachem the Eibusher. Hashem has to be Menachem us. We have to be Menachem him. And this is through tzedakah. And tzedakah, but specifically, what kind of tzedakah? It's a kind of tzedakah that it's a limitless tzedakah. And again, we don't have unlimited funds, so we can't give unlimited tzedakah. But again, it's about the mindset. It's about the perspective. It's about getting rid of those artificial limitations, or even if they're not so artificial, the real limitations that we've created in our minds about how much tzedakah we can give, how much tzedakah we have to give, and how much tzedakah the Torah tells us to give, and how much tzedakah we could give, and we push ourselves and we go further, and that's how we're going to bring Mashiach. Tzion b'mishpat hipada v'shaveha b'tzedakah. So we finished we finished the Siman. Mirz Hashem, next week we'll start Siman Yud Aleph. Siman Yud Aleph, which is a very, very famous Siman, also a very radical, dramatic Siman.
About tzedakah too?
Also about tzedakah. No, actually not. Actually not. Siman Yud Aleph. No, it's not about tzedakah. We just finished Siman Yud, which Siman Yud again is about. We've learned different prakim in the Iggeres HaKodesh about tzedakah, the different benefits of tzedakah, and the chidush in this letter is in the past we talked about how tzedakah brings the Gula and how tzedakah allows you to daven better, and tzedakah brings down oil into this world. But in terms of this letter, the nekuda of this letter is the relationship between tzedakah specifically and tshuva. The chaste Hashem kilei samnu. When a person finds himself in a matzav, which they're not complete, which by the way, there's a reason why it's an eicha, because in Galus pretty much that's everyone. And then the eitzah for that is to give tzedakah. This is what Alter Rebbe was encouraging his chassidim to give tzedakah beyond what their limitations were, and this way to bring kapara and to fill up, to refill and to fix and to remedy any imperfections that they may have had. But a larger idea that emerges from here is this idea in general that a tzaddik doesn't need chastei Hashem. A tzaddik can have a limited chesed and give a limited tzedakah and bring down into the world only the level of chesed olam. And here you have something. It's almost like almost along the lines of choyte niskar, that because you sinned, you have an advantage. That because a person did an avera, now you get to channel chastei Hashem. Now you get to bring down into this world the rav chesed. And this is the advantage of the Baal Tshuva, as mentioned earlier, the B'makom Shebal Tshuva aimed to mean tzaddikim gemurim b'chem lamid sham, that it started off in a bad place, it started off in a dark place, but ultimately when a person is in a dark place, you have to realize there's a reason why. And the purpose of the dark place is that you should be able to reach a higher and a much more infinite level of avodas Hashem and of and being in touch with the and stuff itself, and that is only a product because of the fact kilei samnu, because we're not complete. And this idea is something which obviously is related to the 3 weeks, and related also to this week's parsha. So this week's parsha is a whopper, Matis Masai. It's the longest parsha that there is. And we know when we have two parshias, when we read two parshias, it's not pshat that we're reading two parshias, we're reading one parsha. We don't say this week is Parshiyos Mates Maseh. We say it's Parshas Mates Maseh. That means it's one Parsha.
Yeah.
We put them together. And it's also interesting that when we read the Torah on Shabbos, whenever we have a double Parsha, the ending of the first Parsha and the beginning of the second Parsha are both read together as Revi. Which is interesting. They're both read together. Now you would think if it's two Parshas, okay. So I understand that due to calendar limitations, so I need to read two Parshas the Shabbos. Okay, so we'll read one Parsha. But it's still a different Parsha, right? So we'll make sure that we'll make a stop after that and a start before the next one to indicate that we're starting a next Parsha because we're reading two Parshas. The fact that we put it together tells you no, it's not two Parshas. It's one Parsha, which is why we don't even stop between the two of them.
Why does it have two names? It's one parsha.
What's your name?
Reuven.
Just one name.
That's it.
Okay. My name is Naftali Eliezer. Why do I have two names? I don't know. It happens sometimes. Lech lecha chayisara.
That was the nevuah that your parents had.
Sorry?
Why it should
That
have
was the
one name?
nevuah that your parents had.
No, usually
It's
it's
one. He said one.
No, it's not one.
He said that. Just
It's that when you put it together, you read it together.
Okay. By the time we finish, you'll have the answer to your question. What, you wanted to say something over? You wanted to say something?
No, I said already.
No, not you. Behind you.
Eliezer.
Ali, you said something. I missed what you said.
Put your two sets of-
I said they're both intertwined. They're all intertwined together.
Yeah.
Matas,
Now,
matas.
names aren't random.
How they intertwine.
Just like you mentioned that the reason why I have two names is because of
The connection is not the
the nevuah that my parents had,
They intertwine. How do you
Well,
intertwine?
they're still
and that's true.
Right after.
And in my particular case, it's I think even more evident than in most. I don't think my parents even know why they gave me my second name. I mean, they know, but they barely remember. But that was supposed to be my name. V'akapanim, a name is important. We learned in Shaykh Vamuna that a name reflects the nature of something, because the energy of something, the divine energy within something, is contained within the name. So a name isn't random. A name isn't just a handle. There are points it's not, even in terms of parshas. You know, people think, oh, it's just random. You needed a name for a parsha, so you pick one of the first words, right?
Yeah.
So we have a parsha called Tildas, and we have a parsha called Noach. Now one starts Elo Tildas Noach, and one starts Elo Tildas Yitzchak. Why is the Tildas and Noach? Why isn't the Tildas and Yitzchak? Think about it for a second. Noach should have been called Tildas, and Tildas should have been called Yitzchak. Because if it's about the first, the word closest, the unique word that's closest to the beginning of the parsha. So when we get to the first parsha, which is Eila Tildas Noach, so the first word, you don't want to call a parsha Eila, because Eila is like a conjunction word. Call it Tildas. The next parsha, you get to Eila Tildas Yitzchak. We can't call it Eila. You already can't call it Tildas because already taken, so call it Yitzchak. Just like we have a parsha Chayisar, have a parsha Yitzchak. It's a silly question to you. But what does that tell you? It tells you, no, it's not random. This parsha has to be called Noach because Noach represents that parsha. And this parsha has to be called Tildas because the Nekuda of the parsha is about Tildas. And as explained in the Sfarim, why this is Noach and why this is Tildas. The names aren't random. The same thing is also Matis and Masai, they're not random. And obviously also when they become one parsha, which has two names, the Matis and Masai, so obviously these two names also, it's not random and there's a connection. What is the idea of Matis, Masai? What is Matis? Matis is Vaidaber Moshe El Rashi HaMatis. What is Matis? Matis are the Shvatim. So why doesn't it say El Rashi HaShvatim?
That's later.
What's the difference between a Mata and a Shevet? The answer is a Shevet, they're both sticks that come from a tree. A Shevet is while it's still moist, which is either because it's still connected, or if it's not connected, it was very recently disconnected to the point that it still has within it the moisture and the sap from its source. And a Mata is hard. A Mata is hard. A dried up stick is a Mata. And both of those represent Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael, we always, whether we're a Shevet, whether we're a Mata, because we are the 12 Shvatim, we're the 12 Matas, we all come from the tree. The tree is Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Ultimately, the tree is Hashem himself. Our neshamas come from Hashem. But there are some times when we are like Shvatim, which means either we're in a very revealed and open way, we retain our connection. At the very least, even if we've been cut off, but you still feel and see the connection, you still feel the moistness and the life in it. And sometimes we're mates. In general, this is the neshamas before they come down into our body is we're shvatim, we're the shevet. Before we come down, our connection to Hashem is apparent and clear and obvious. And when we come down into this world, we become a mata. That's when, at least in an apparent way, it appears that our connection we don't see. You don't look at a yid and automatically see their connection to Hashem. And when we come down into the world, our avodah has to be the avodah of a mata. A hard stick. And here in this world, we can't be soft. It takes, in order to be a yid and to be a shemer Torah mitzvahs and to do what's right, it takes strength, it takes fortitude, it takes standing up like a hard stick. And that is the neshama as it comes down here into this world. What is the purpose of mates? Why is it necessary for yidden to enter the state and become mates? Why couldn't we stay shvatim? Why couldn't our neshama stay above? And the answer to that is maseh. Because we need to move, we need to travel. Malachim, as we know, as the Navi says in Zechariah, Malachim are mahalchim. Are oimdim. Malachim, they're very holy, they're very wonderful, they're very beautiful, but they stand always on one level. They lack the capacity to completely break away from where they are and reach an infinitely higher level. Neshamas are mahalchim. As the pasuk says, V'nasati, it's the lashon v'nasati, eschem mahalchim ben oimdim ha'elu. How do we become a mahalach? How do we become a goer or a traveler? Maseh? Through mates. Through coming down here into this world and engaging this world and Torah mitzvahs down here in this world, through the mates, that's how we reach a place of maseh. That's generally speaking. But even more particularly, this is true about Golus, which is why Matis Maseh are parshas which you always read during the 3 weeks. During the times when the Beis HaMikdash was around and we were there in Eretz Yisrael, so to a certain extent we were still Shiftei Yudke, Shiftei Ka. We were there, connected to the source, to the Beis HaMikdash, where we would go, Hekeshem Shabaliris, Kach Balahirois. We went to Beis HaMikdash to see Hashem and to be seen by Hashem, and there were the Nisim that happened in the Beis HaMikdash. We were still on the level of Shvatim. In order to reach the level of Maseh, for that we needed to have the Matos, we needed to have the Golos in order for us to be able to reach the much higher level. And the same thing is also what we're talking about over here. The ultimate Golos of Klal Yisrael is the Golos. The Beis HaMikdash was destroyed and we went to Bavel. But as we've learned several times in Tanya, the idea of Galul LeBavel or Galul LeEdim, what does that mean in a spiritual sense? What does it mean Galul LeBavel? Galul Edom spiritually means that you entered the state of Bavel, you entered the state of Edom, you became a person who has done Averis. And obviously you can't compare the Yerida, the Mata state of a person when they've done Averis, which is, as the Navi says, when Avera Pashat separates you from Hashem, and you become a Mata, dried up stick. And when a person becomes a dried up stick on Mata, which is the ultimate Golos, we have to know what is the purpose of that. Maseh, to reach the level of Chastei Hashem. Because Kilei Samnu. The purpose is to reach the higher level, the level of the Eir Insaf, which is dafke through the Avodah of Kilei Samnu, and that is the ultimate purpose of the Golos. The ultimate purpose of the Golos is not a punishment, it's to bring us to Madriga, which is much higher than was possible at a time when we were Tamnu, when we were Samnu. This Kilei Samnu is bringing us to that level. So in the 3 weeks when we're busy and we're being misabel Yerushalayim, and that's talking the time to be misabel. However, that's when it comes during the weekdays. During the Shabbosim of the 3 weeks, there is no Avelos. Because Shabbos is Me'ein Elam Haba. Shabbos is Mizmor Sheli MaShabbos L'Yem Shekulei. Shabbos Menucha L'Chayelam. Shabbos is a Te'ima of Mashiach. And just like when Mashiach comes, we will look back in Golos and realize that the whole purpose of Golos, the physical pain and the spiritual pain, was that the Kilei Samnu, to bring us to a much higher madrega, the madrega of the Mikdash Hashlishi, Mikdash Hashem Kenyano Yadecha. Shabbos we have a me'in of Zah. Shabbos is a time of Simcha, and this Shabbos we go to the shul and we read Parshas Matas Masay, and we remember, yes, we're in Golos, and yes, there's right now a matzav of Matis, a state of disconnectedness, but ultimately the purpose of the Matis is to bring us to a place of Masay, to an incredible journey, to a place which we never could have gotten had we remained in a place of Samnu, in a place of completeness. A good Shabbos, and we should not see that the Kar of Mamish, the ultimate destination, the destination of the Yarden Yeriche, the 42nd of the 42nd journey, and Bias Mashiach, the Kar of Mamish. Shabbos, everyone. And Shabbos, and Good Chodesh.